Hi, Joel.
Hello.
So it's this time again. We have a new release coming.
Mm-hmm.
So I, as usual, have a presentation, but now there is a catch.
Okay.
So usually we have a presentation about the release that has happened.
Mhm.
This time around, we have a release candidate, which is 1.17.0 release candidate. So to install it and to play with the features we will talk today about, you will have to have this npm install with @version, and you have to specifically install release candidate. Otherwise, it will not auto-update.
Sure. When does this version come out? When does 117 for?
It's already live. You can install it right now.
But when is it not release candidate?
I don't know yet. Maybe in a week, maybe in 2 weeks. We'll stabilize it. We'll gather feedback about what we did, and if the feedback is good and there are no serious issues, then we'll just push it to stable. It will be really straightforward. Okay, and we have a tip of the day for today. And the tip of the day is to not use element handle unless you are sure that you know what it is.
Okay, so I'm still allowed to use it.
Yeah, you can use it. You know what element handle is.
Okay.
But for everybody else, please don't use element handle. Don't use page.dollar. Don't use wait for selector. These are confusing. It's easy to end up with a flaky code and unreliable code. Instead, use locators for everything. It has a better tooling. It makes sure there are no flakes. It does a lot of good stuff under the hood. So yeah, it's pain-free. Very good way
I think
to automate.
locators are how most people, or what most people thought element handles were doing.
Yes. This is an intended behavior, and we even updated all our documentation to actually use locators everywhere.
Cool.
If you don't know what locators are, there is a link down on the slide. Go read about them. Okay. So we have a little bit of agenda today. We have 5 items to talk about. So let's start with the first one, which is Ubuntu ARM64. So, Joel, question to you. Have you ever seen Ubuntu on ARM64? Do you know where we have ARM64?
I think I have a Raspberry Pi that's running some kind of Ubuntu.
Awesome. Yeah, Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi is a great example of ARM64 hardware. Another one is actually Apple M1, the new fancy, beautiful, shiny MacBooks. They all have Apple Silicon, which is ARM64 as well. So if you want to use Docker with the new Apple MacBook, you end up usually with an ARM64 version of Ubuntu. And there are also certain clouds that have ARM64 hardware. And before this release, there was no way to run Playwright there, because we didn't have browsers for ARM64. Well, now we do. We do them specifically for Ubuntu 20 on ARM64. We compile all our browsers for them. So they all work, and this support is actually coming to Playwright Test, Playwright Library, and Playwright for Python as of today.
Cool.
Awesome. Next chapter, locators or frame locators. So here I have a small demo. We have this website, and it happened to have an iframe, and there is a button inside iframe. So I'm sure, Joel, you found yourself at least once in this situation when you want to click this kind of a button inside iframe. I know recently we had this meeting with some folks that wanted to click buttons inside iframes.
Iframes are fun. I want to pause for a second, just remind people why iframes can be tricky for automation. So like iframes are their own page inside the page. And so usually if you have like a CSS selector or any kind of selector, you can't select something inside the iframe. It only selects the outer frame.
Exactly. Yes. So in Playwright, actually, we had all these frame APIs from the day one, right? You had page.frames, and you could query for all the selectors, and you can do a lot of things. Yeah. We were giving you all the events. You can listen for events, for frames to come up, to attach and to detach, to navigate and everything. But it always required a little bit of a code, right, to set up. Well, frame locators solve this, and now it's really easy to click a button inside this iframe. You just do a locator. You say, I have a page. I want to create a frame locator for this page, and I just use selectors to point to the iframe, and then I just use a regular locator. And once I have this button locator in hands, I can click it.
Okay.
As simple as this. And if you happen to have nesting iframes, for example, you have a page with iframe and iframe inside of this iframe, and then you have a button. Well, you can guess. You have a page, then you have frame locator for the first iframe. Then inside the first iframe, you use frame locator another time to go to the second iframe, and finally you get to a button with locator.
Okay, so to review, so the first first selector is for the iframe element inside the iframe tag inside the main frame.
Yes. Yes.
And then the
exactly.
bar selector selects another iframe inside that iframe.
Yes.
And then the button selects a button inside the iframe, inside the iframe, inside the page.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly. Now, so this actually is very cool because these frame locators are strict by default. So if you happen to have two iframes with the same selector, we will ask you to disambiguate this selector. You can use, either first or second or whatever, or nth.
Yeah.
These will auto wait for iframes to attach and detach, so you don't have to bother and to care about this kind of stuff. And you can use these naturally in web first assertions. So it's just first-class citizen now everywhere, and it completes the locator story for the web, I think.
Yeah, so like before I would have to, like if I had a button inside an iframe, I'd have to go to the page, then wait for the iframe to appear, and then find the button inside it. Now I can just do frame locator, and
yes.
I don't have to wait for anything.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. So there's a handful of APIs for frame locators. You can easily create them either using page or frame, or create a frame locator from frame locator. And to use them, there's the first, last, and nth methods. These are to disambiguate between different iframes. And you can create a locator from frame locator with .locator call. So
and we have these APIs in all the languages, right?
Yes.
I know we have it in .NET because I did .NET yesterday. So
nice.
Yes.
It's all everywhere.
Okay.
Next up, HTML report update. Now, with this version, we have a new shiny UI for HTML report. It looks like this, but I actually want to demo it for you live. So this is a demo. For this, I have to stop screen share and then share my entire screen.
I liked your slide with the curtain. This is going to be
quite
a performance.
Yeah, it's in my new demo slide. Okay, so let me zoom in a little. Is it good enough?
Yeah.
Okay. So this is Playwright repository that we work daily, and we happen to use Playwright test to run tests inside Playwright naturally. And I will run just npm run test, and I will say reporter equals HTML, and I will run a subset of our tests. We have 2,400 tests, and it's too long. I mean, too much to run right now. I will run just the screenshot tests, and I rigged one of the tests so that it will actually fail, so that I can show you what does it look when a test fails. A screenshot test fails.
It looks like some tests are failing.
Yes, because I rigged it. Yeah.
Okay.
I told you.
So Playwright's not broken. You just messed it up for the demo.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. So it's been running on 3 different browsers because we have different 3 projects right now at Playwright. It's Firefox, WebKit, and Chrome. So once it concludes running tests, it opens an HTML report for me right away. And this is what it looks like. And this is a new UI, and it has this new search bar at the very top.
Oh, we're not seeing that.
Oh, you're not seeing it. Sorry. Let me share. Chrome tab. Here it is. I had to share my screen, full screen.
It's much prettier.
Yes. Okay, so new UI. We have search bar in the top. I can type here, and it filters all the tests by the name to include this. I have like all the tests that make sure that clipping is worked correctly, for example. Now to the right-hand side here, I have all these tabs, so I can filter everything that failed, for example, or everything that passed. And here, next to each test, I have this beautiful colored tag, and this is a project tag. And these are actually clickable. I can click on WebKit and see all the tests that actually fail on WebKit. I can click on Chromium. and it shows me everything Chromium. And yeah, naturally, like this one is failing, for example. I can click on it and see all the details here. So this is my error, something's wrong with the snapshot, these are my steps, and this is my image mismatch. So yeah, well,
the numbers are
different.
wrong.
The numbers are wrong. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
And down here we even have a trace, so I can click on the trace, and this will open the trace UI for me. But I'll talk about tracing later a little.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so this is not before we finish the HTML report demo. I actually want to show you one more thing, which is I have to share my terminal again. So I can go to Playwright report, and now here we have this index HTML. Now I can zip this index HTML and just send it to you, Joel, for example, as a Slack attachment or in Gmail, and you can gunzip it.
Or in Outlook.
Yes, exactly. And just open it as a file URL, and it will work. And this will be exactly the same, dynamic HTML report. It's self-contained in one HTML file. So it's really nice to share them now.
So you can send it to your manager, and you don't have to tell them how to install Node.
Yes, yeah, exactly. Basically, this was the whole point. Nice. So let me switch back to my presentation.
You should probably zip it instead of gzipping it if you're going to send it to your manager.
Why? Oh, yes, maybe. I don't know.
Because people don't know how to...
Whatever is more popular these days.
Yeah.
Okay, next stuff here is Trace Viewer update. And this was actually a huge release for Trace Viewer. We had all kinds of UI enhancements here. Like we have a new sources tab, a new metadata tab. But actually, we also now deploy Trace Viewer to the website. Now you can navigate to trace.playwright.dev, and this will be a Trace Viewer UI for you. And I'll actually show it to you in the next demo. And I'll show all the UI enhancements on this demo of the trace.playwright.dev. This time I'll actually share my whole screen because it's impossible to switch between the sharings.
So while you're doing that, so both the things we've been talking about right now were for Playwright test, but this Trace Viewer stuff is for all the languages, right?
Yes.
You don't need to be using Playwright test to get these new Trace Viewer improvements.
Yes, exactly. So first thing I do, I navigate to traceplaywright.dev, and it presents this nice UI for me. Now I can select a file, and I have a trace prepared, right, for this demo. And I can open it. Now, I can see this UI. This is a new trace UI. And even though this is a website that we deploy, this trace is not uploaded anywhere. It's all processed locally. So no data is transferred anywhere from this computer.
Okay,
very important because people are very worried about this.
Yeah, sometimes people's traces have important information in them.
Yes.
You're not sending them cookies. To Microsoft. We don't want them. We don't see them.
Yes, exactly. Okay, so 4 new things in this UI for this release. So first and foremost, we have this new title, and it tells me where does this trace come from. And I have this GitHub automation that I recorded a trace of, and I can see it here. Then on the left-hand side, next to Actions tab, we have this metadata tab. This is a new whole thing. It has the metadata about the trace, like when was it captured, how long does the trace take, what engine was used to record the trace, and on which platform, what were the viewport dimensions, and was it a mobile viewport, and certain statistics about the trace, the whole trace. Okay, now on the left-hand side, I have a list of actions, and on the right-hand side, I have details about selected action. Now, after the console and network,
so what is this test doing?
Oh, I just go and navigating somewhere. It automates web. It clicks on Playwright.
We're on GitHub, and we're
we're on GitHub, and we are clicking buttons and typing text in here and in there. Nothing fancy. Nothing fancy. But it's pretty long. Okay, so for each action here, now we have a source tab. And source, we now bundle sources with the trace automatically. So we can see for a selected action here where it comes from your source. So this is my automation. You can scroll it.
Yeah, this is your test.
This is my test, exactly. And
Yeah.
as I go over their actions,
Mm-hmm.
I can see them selected in my source tab. This is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And last but not least, for each action, for each DOM snapshot, actually, we have this URL bar here, right next to the snapshot.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the current URL of the snapshot. So for example, in this wait for navigation call, we navigated to some other URL, and you can see the URL where we are at after the navigation, and so on.
Mm-hmm.
So these are the new things about Trace Viewer.
Yeah.
Okay, and back to my presentation. Other news. Our last stop here, and not much. We have full support for Edge Stable now. It is available on Linux, and you can install it with npx playwright install MS Edge. This
Cool.
will install the stable channel of Edge. Okay, so short summary. We have Ubuntu ARM64 support. We have frame locators. We have new HTML report, which is nice and dynamic, and you can easily send it to everybody. And we have a new trace viewer update. Yes.
And we're expecting it like 2 to 3 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks. What was
1 to 2 weeks until it is released? Yes,
okay.
I think so. Yeah, it's a rough estimate. Yes. So if you liked what we do, please give us a like on Twitter, follow us on YouTube, and give us a star on GitHub as usual. Head over to our documentation to read more about Playwright. Yeah, thank you for following us. Thanks, Joel.